We see the headlines about massive lawsuits and market monopolies, but we rarely see the actual mechanics of how they're being fought. This is EconWorks. We look past the talking points to find where law, economics, and markets actually collide. Let's get into it.
Have you ever wondered how these big antitrust laws actually play out in the real world? Well, the recent verdict against Ticketmaster is the perfect case study. We're going to break down what happens when a company gets this powerful and what the law can really do about it. Okay, let's dive right in. This image, it pretty much sets the stage for the whole story we're about to unpack. You've got the company, the courtroom, the charges, and that big central question of accountability. Think of it as our roadmap for today. First up, let's talk about the case itself. To really understand the verdict, you have to know what the specific accusations were, what formed the very heart of this huge antitrust lawsuit. So the whole thing really rested on these four key pillars. The plaintiffs had to prove that Ticketmaster wasn't just a big company, but that it actually had monopoly power, and that it used that power to shut out other companies, which hurt competition, and ultimately that people like you and me paid the price for it. Now, this idea of exclusionary conduct is really interesting. What does it actually mean? Well, just think of it like this locked gate. By signing these exclusive deals with venues, Ticketmaster basically controls who gets in. It leaves you, the fan, with way fewer choices when you just want to buy a ticket. It's like a classic move for maintaining a monopoly. And that brings us to how this hurts us, the consumers. And this wasn't just a theory. No, they brought the receipts, literally. Just look at the difference between a ticket's face value and what people were actually paying on the resale market. A market that, surprise, surprise, the company also has a huge hand in. So here's the number that was so important, an overcharge of $1.72. Now, I know what you're thinking. That doesn't sound like a lot. But this was a tangible 1 to 3% overcharge. And when you multiply that by millions and millions of tickets, you are talking about a ton of money being pulled out of the market. And for the jury, that was some powerful evidence. But wait a minute. How did we even get here? To really get this verdict, we need to rewind the clock a bit. Back to a deal made over a decade ago that was supposed to stop this exact thing from happening. So let's go back to 2010. Live Nation and Ticketmaster merge. The Department of Justice immediately steps in, really worried it was going to kill competition. But the whole thing never went to a full trial. Instead, they reached a settlement. And that settlement has a fancy name, a consent decree. What is that? Well, it's basically a deal. The company agrees to follow a set of rules and conditions so the government will approve the merger and everyone avoids a long, messy court battle. It's a really common tool in these kinds of cases. And this right here, this gets to the core of the problem. That deal back in 2010, even with all its conditions, clearly didn't fix the real issues of market power. It basically left the door wide open for the kind of behavior that landed them back in court. Which brings us right back to today and to the big climax of the trial, the verdict. After all the evidence, all the arguments, it was finally time for the jury to have their say. So after weighing all four of those key charges we talked about, the monopoly power, the exclusionary deals, the harm to competitors, and the harm to consumers, what did they decide? Libel. That was the verdict, and not just on one count, on all of them. It was a complete sweep for the plaintiffs, and a really decisive statement from the jury that yes, the company's practices had crossed a legal line. But here's the thing, and it's so important to remember. A jury's decision, even when this big, is not the end of the road. Finding a company liable is one thing. Deciding what to do about it, that's a whole other ballgame. So yeah, what does come next? Now that the verdict's in, the whole focus shifts from who's at fault to what are the consequences? What is actually going to change because of this decision? And that's the question that really matters to all of us, right? A legal victory is one thing, but what's the real-world impact going to be on ticket prices, on our choices, and on the whole live event industry? The process now moves into what's known as the remedies phase. This is where the judge, using the jury's verdict as a guide, gets to decide the specific actions the company has to take to fix the anti-competitive harm it caused. And honestly, these remedies, they are everything. They could be anything from massive fines to forcing changes in how they do contracts, maybe even big structural changes to the company itself. This next step is what's going to define the true legacy of this case. And so we're left with this huge question. The verdict was a massive step, for sure. But the final outcome for all of us who just want to go to a show, that is far from decided. You could say the real fight for competition is only just getting started.
Thanks for watching. For the deep dive economic analysis behind these stories, join us at econworks.com. Subscribe to stay informed on where law and economics meet the market. We'll see you in the next episode.